Reddit has a lot of hot takes when it comes to software engineering as a career. So let's take some time to debunk some of those. And more importantly, tell you which of those hot takes are actually true. So let's get started with this one that's nice and spicy, referencing a Reddit post about an interviewer talking about their experiences with candidates. Cheating is rampant in software interviews. So having spent a decent amount of time in the industry, I do agree that cheating is probably more rampant than immediately meets the eye. And while I don't have any hard data to validate my claims, there are a number of experiences that I can cite. This is kind of similar to back in academic settings like in high school or college, where there was always groups of people who used their connections in order to cheat and get ahead in class. And in the tech industry, I've seen a number of tactics being used. So there's this one site called 1.3 Acres, which is basically a Chinese site where people will post entire take-home software interviews here, so that people can use it and study it at home. And in other cases, kind of like the post mentioned above, some people will use AI tools like ChatGPT or even other sources to cheat when the interviews are remote or when it's like an online coding assessment or something. But it's still frustrating sometimes just to know that some people already have all the answers to the tests and can pass 100% of the test cases. But let's be clear though, I think in software interviews, it's still best that we maintain integrity in the interview process, because generally, continually cheating is robbing yourself of actual learning experiences. And while leak code is kind of dumb and useless, taking shortcuts will inevitably show up when you have to show up for an in-person interview sometime, or if you're unable to deliver on the job once you actually get it. So while this hot take might have ounces of truth to it, I think it's still best that we all maintain our own integrity. Okay, on to the next hot take. CS career questions is terrible for career advice. So if you don't know what this is a subreddit for people who are struggling to get a computer science job. And generally, this is a hot take with an ounce of truth to it. When I was searching for my first software job, I would frequent this sub all the time, and for two general reasons. The first one was that it was just a sub full of people who shared the same anxieties, struggles, and could find community in other people in order to keep them going on their journeys. But two is that it actually offered me a lot of actionable insights, like improving my resume, helping me find better places to apply to jobs, and how to network and stuff. But all this was not really without its downsides. As with a lot of online sources, Reddit can really fall into groupthink and echo chambers, and everyone can sort of start to form the same opinion over time. When you log on to the subreddit, a lot of the advice will start to say like, quit your job, or like software sucks and stuff. It can end up having a very doom and gloom perspective on your career, which if you're already not feeling great about it, it can make you feel worse. So from my experience, it's crucial to maintain a balanced perspective. When finding a job and reading this forum, it's important to find nuance in everything. And if you can recognize nuance and toss away all of the noise, it can be a great place for you to get career advice. But if you can't filter out the noise sometimes, then it's just gonna cause you a lot of anxiety and unwanted, unnecessary anxiety. That's gonna make things worse. Okay, so next hot take. Some people make working in tech or being a software engineer their entire personality. This is something that's actually pretty common and something I experienced amongst coworkers and something I actually subscribe to myself. There is actually a comment here that really hits home, but let me give some context before I bring it up. When I came out of college, software wasn't just my job, it became the core of my entire identity because I had felt compelled to immerse myself in this field. Not only because I felt like I genuinely loved it, but it was also because I felt like you had to do this in order to survive. And so I pushed myself to make my whole life about software. And when I finally got a software job, I would code at work and I would code more at home just to learn more. And so going back to the comments from earlier, this guy is basically saying because he is a shut-in anyways, he might as well just dedicate his whole life to software and make some money off of it. This sentiment was basically me. In my head, I felt like I didn't need a social life. I had software. As long as I continually progressed as a software engineer, as long as I felt like I was making more money and progressing, I didn't really need anything else. And this eventually progressed into me trying to get into better and better companies by practicing just obscene amounts of leak code and everything. I think this is also why a lot of software engineers base their whole personality off of the company they work for and like the prestige of their job and everything. And yeah, this was an extremely toxic mindset that shouldn't really be taken that lightly. And it stunted my ability to form true social connections for years and years because I ignored developing my social skills. But it's crucial to recognize this trap and not let this industry overshadow every part of your life. Because one day, if you decide that you don't want your career to be your life, everything else is going to come crumbling down with it. Okay, so next hot take. Software engineers will always be at the mercy of business people. This is again a statement that has some truth to it, but not in the way it's presented. I think it's easy during the beginning of your career, especially if you're awkward and you don't have good social skills, to perceive business professionals and project managers as the bane of your existence. You might even develop just like a deep hatred for them. And I know because this is just how I kind of was at the beginning of my journey. But with time, I've realized this is all way more nuanced than it appears. Product people, business people, they aren't the enemy of software. They just operate in a completely different set of problems and challenges than compared to software engineers. We wrestle with engineering challenges, while product managers and business people, they wrestle with people challenges. I think this can cause a disparity in the communication, where software engineers can constantly think that product people are calling useless meetings and setting arbitrary deadlines and putting pressure for no reason, when they're really just trying to solve people problems. And meanwhile, product people might see software engineers as just like socially inept code monkeys. The phrase "do good work and your work will speak for itself" is idealistic at best for a software engineer. In the workplace, you have to stand up for your own accomplishments. You have to really speak for yourself, or else others and product people are just gonna walk all over you, leading to the hot take that was given here. Okay, so next hot take. This one is essentially saying software engineers can't get a job because they are socially awkward. And this is again a topic I feel very strongly about because I think it's very valid. And I think I'm only qualified to say this because I was very socially inept, and that caused me from getting a lot of jobs. Early in my career, I thought that technical skills were all that really mattered, and that whatever I did with my work, it would overshadow my personal deficiencies with socializing and everything. And my mindset was always deliver great work and then people will gravitate towards me. Well, there's two issues with this. The first one being that doing great work is much, much easier said than done. And two is that even if you do great work, people aren't going to be gravitated towards you. They're just going to give you a thumbs up and then continue with what they were doing. My lack of social skills becoming a problem in my interviewing was most apparent in my first software interview job search. Because I was awkward a lot of times when I wasn't presented with a technical question during an interview, I would have no idea what to say and I would be extremely silent. And when I was presented with a technical problem, I wouldn't really try to discuss it with the interviewer. I would just jump straight into it and then be really silent while I was thinking. My social skills also caused me a lot of anxiety because like whenever I felt an interview go poorly, instead of viewing the situation as a problem I was trying to solve together with my interviewer, I would instead think back to all the days that I was doing bad on a test at school or something where I was like being scolded by my teachers, and I would just like shut down mentally in the middle of an interview. And so social skills are extremely important in interviews. Me not being able to convey my thoughts clearly and effectively to an interviewer means that they just can't understand me and they can't give me the benefit of the doubt. And it's just a big red flag in terms of communication. Because if I can't communicate and come off as a person that's easy or fun to work with during a 1-hour interview, how can I possibly work with them for 40 hours a week? Okay, next take. Not everyone can hold down a software job. This was one that I disagree with strongly because I'll tell you this. If I could hold down the software job, I think pretty much anyone can do it. Because when I came from college, I didn't have great skills. I was lazy, I was entitled, and I didn't want to work hard. I was just the perfect example of someone who didn't deserve to be in software. And what happened to me was a combination of luck and timing that happened to land me a job. And once I was in the job, what set me apart was not that I was smart. I think it was just that I was more persistent and more willing to just bang my head against the wall for like 24 hours on a problem. And also the fear of being fired. I think most of software engineering isn't about being smart or having the best problem-solving skills. It's just about perseverance, persistence, and if you can keep Googling answers, more or less, you'll probably be fine in the career. Okay, so the next hot take. AI will replace software engineers easily. So this has been a huge conversation in the tech world. Pretty much everywhere you're going now, people are saying like AI is going to replace all our jobs. But I think there's more to this story than meets the eye. I think at its core, being a software engineer isn't really about coding specifically. It's kind of about human interaction, understanding complex requirements, and breaking them all down into small and workable tasks. AI has brought a lot of tools that make coding easier, like Copilots or ChatGPT, and it makes us more productive as engineers. But as of now, there's not quite a path for it to replace all these complex systems of designing specific requirements you need for software and then automating the whole process. I think a good example is remembering the buzz around self-driving cars. We all thought by 2020, all these ride-sharing services would have replaced their entire fleets with self-driving cars by now. But the technology really isn't there yet. And I think similar things will happen with AI replacing software engineers. And our final hot take: software engineering is not that hard. Again, I think this has a degree of nuance to it and a degree of truth. I would say that the majority of roles I had in my life, mostly web development, weren't really the most difficult thing. But it does have an undeniable steep learning curve that requires a lot of time and patience. I think what this comment is referencing is comparing software engineering to other engineering fields. From my personal experience, I transferred out of a hybrid electrical engineering degree into computer science, partially because I just had more interest in computer science, but also because engineering has incredibly difficult amounts of math and science in it. And this is not to say that there aren't incredibly difficult software jobs. The people who are working on AI, infrastructure, and all these other things, they definitely have jobs requiring tons and tons of math. And it is true that in software, there's a lot of painful things that are required in standard, like on-call rotations late at night. But if we take a look at it from a broader perspective, if someone can work a 3-month boot camp and get a 6-figure salary, it's probably not the most difficult job in the world.